So, coming right up, we have from AMTD that's going to be touching upon digital banking, banking as a service in a new digital era. And of course, banking has been ever transformative, and with COVID, the need for digital banking has increased vastly. To talk more about this topic, we have Paula Liu, Head of Digital Innovations and Client Experience at AMTD Digital. Of course, we also have our special guest, Osman Faiz, Chief Information and Operating Officer, AMTD Digital, Myles Bertrand, Managing Director, Mambu Asia Pacific, and Hassan Nasser, Chief Innovation Officer, Fidor. Let's welcome all of them.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Paula, your moderator for today. I'm very excited to be here to host this panel on banking as a service with three panelists. Osman Faiz, CIO and COO of AMTD Group, who has more than 25 years of incumbent experience looking at expanding AMTD digital footprints globally and across the region. Myles Bertrand, Mambu Asia Pacific Managing Director. Myles has been in the financial technology business for over 20 years. He leads the APAC team for Mambu, focusing on growth and execution. Hassan Nasser, Chief Innovation Officer, Fidor Solutions. Hassan is responsible in bringing high-quality next-gen software solutions focused on hyper-personalized client experience. Now, my first question, I would like to direct that to Myles. I think in your context, and also looking at Mambu, which is a very well-known name in the banking as a service kind of new era, what kind of role that you think that fintechs are playing when we talk about banking as a service as operating model?
Thanks, Paula, and great to be here, and great to be here with everybody as well. I think fintechs have been probably one of the key catalysts for banking as a service. The really exciting thing is the getting entry into the financial services space and getting entry into becoming a bank used to be cost prohibitive. It used to be operationally very challenging. It used to be very expensive, big projects. And what we've seen with the evolution of particularly sort of banking as a service providers with cloud technology, with a lot of organizations coming together to create ecosystems of capability, has lowered that barrier. And what that's doing is it's driving both new entrants to come into the space, but I think what it's also doing is driving slightly different behavior out of the incumbent banks as well, which I think is really, really exciting, because banking has sort of been the same for such a long period of time. But now you're seeing some really, really interesting innovation, really, really different models coming to the fore. And banking as a service and SaaS and the new fintech technology has probably been one of the key drivers of that, in my opinion. We've seen that evolution occur. It's probably been going on in Europe for a number of years, and now we're really starting to see that come down into Asia Pacific. A lot of countries are really driving. They want to really drive financial inclusion. They really want to drive different banking experiences. You're seeing the issuing of digital licenses across a number of geographies in the region, which is incredibly exciting. And it's not the typical organizations that are going for those licenses. We're seeing really, really exciting organizations really look to diversify and really support their existing customer bases by offering financial services. And I really believe that banking as a service and the newer fintech technology has been a key driver of that.
Thanks, Myles, for sharing your view. The next question I want to ask Osman, who has been having a lot of regulatory insights and also had the experience of working on a number of regulatory initiatives, both in the region and also in Singapore particularly. How do you see some of the regulatory landscape changing, and what kind of changes that will also kind of accelerate some of this banking as a service adoption, which is happening with both the incumbent banks as well as the new fintech players?
Well, I mean, it's a very broad question, Paula, I must say. And I'm not a regulator either, so I can't really comment. But you see, it's end of the day, it's end of the day a partnership. And I think there is no straight line answer to any of those. There are a lot of exploration that are taking place. Even if you look at these platforms or new technologies, in my personal view, none of these have been tested over 10, 15, 20 years. So these will also go through quite a bit of change and transformation. At the same time, the regulators are also, allowing this disruption to come in the right sense that Nasser and others have just explained, that we need some healthy competition. The expectation of the clients have also changed. The time value of money is there. So the perspective of doing banking is completely transforming. So bank has always been an intermediary. So you have to look at from our client's experience or client's unmet demand. So with that change, the regulators will always look at how do we protect the interest of the, if it is a retail client, the depositors. And obviously that's where regulations are pretty stringent in terms of, if you look at the digital bank licenses the regulator are going to issue in Singapore, the capital requirement is a lot higher than a wholesale bank license. Similarly, the whole College of Regulators, they are also in conversations to say, how do we manage the cross-jurisdiction, cross-border issues around money laundering or sanction screening? And those are the challenges that are increasingly becoming difficult, as well as on the technology sides. While things are getting enabled, there are many new different ways that people are finding to circumvent. So I guess it's a collaboration of a discussion that will evolve eventually to a better environment for all of us to gain from this transformation or technology tools that are coming. Example being, say, cloud. There is no specific cloud guidelines that can be restricted or totally opened up. There are challenges around on-prem or cross-jurisdiction issue, the flow of data, how those are encrypted with the cyber risk constantly going up. So the more changes that are coming, the new dimensions of risk are also evolving. The cyber risk, if you look at 20 years back, probably people didn't care so much. Now the digital adoption rate has gone through the roof in ASEAN region. And obviously, we as an AMTD Digital are trying to do our piece in terms of setting up cyber center of excellence, bringing the expertise from the West, and collaborating academia, the professionals, the existing technologies who needs to be reskilled. So I see this broadly, Paula, that there will be collaborations and participation of various players, and consultations are happening as we speak. And through that process, things will get amended. And I do believe that data, as we say, gold, will play a great role for any financial institutions or fintech who will be able to leverage that the most efficient way, will be kind of ahead in the curve in order to cater to the need of the client.
Awesome. Thanks for that insight sharing.
Hey, Paula,
Yeah.
Can I just add? The one thing I would say,
Sure.
and I agree with Osman 100%, I think the evolution of the regulator themselves over the past 2 years has been incredible. I remember giving a presentation to a room full of regulators 2 years ago, and the thought of the cloud and fintech running mission critical banking systems was just foreign. But they're actually being proactive and reaching out to organizations like Fidor and like ourselves, because they do want to understand. So I think, to Osman's point, it is a collaboration working really hand in hand with the regulators, and they are open. They know they need to support this, they need to go on the journey, but they need to put the right rigor and the right framework against it. But it's been really encouraging to see how proactive the regulators have been, particularly in Asia Pacific over the past 2 years.
Yeah, just to add, Paula, to what Myles has said, that even if you look at AI, right? So there are questions around ethical AI, the fairness element. So the more technology evolutions are coming up, the more new ways of looking at things are also getting with a new dimension and lens being applied. So it intrigues me that the more we digitize and get technology enabled, I guess it will be much more cohesive and collaborative approach that all these parties have to play, because there is no reference point that this is an ideal solution and you stick by that.
Exactly that, and this is exactly what we're seeing as well from our side with the collaboration with regulators across Singapore, ASEAN, also in the Middle East and Africa. And we see that openness for the past 1 to 2 years that is coming more and more, and bringing everyone together to collaborate, to say how can we actually open up in a regulated manner, or if we open it up from that perspective, how can we ensure that the clients are protected. And to the AI conversation, Osman, it's I think it's a question of the century. How can we have AI ethical and with all kind of race for a general AI? That is one of the most interesting questions, and how all of that relate to banking.
The UK PRA has just initiated a consultation across multiple stakeholders globally to join this and facilitate the conversation. And it's fascinating, some of the discussions that are taking place through that platform.
Yeah. It's very encouraging to see actually regulators are kind of also facilitating some of this collaboration, right, across different parties, and also trying to align that to the expectations of the client who are actually demanding for new experience and new financial products, and that promotes financial inclusion as well. But I think the next question, I just want to be very focused in terms of technology. We all know that banking as a service, platform banking focuses a lot in terms of technology as an enabler, and we have been talking about APIs in terms of cloud technologies. That is all changing the way that how technology enables the banking as a service and also the servicing of the client experience. So I know Hassan, you has been engineering in the background for a long time. So do you want to share with us from a technology enabling perspective, what kind of difference does it bring, and what are kind of core enablers that you are seeing a very drastic pickup in different parts of the world?
Yeah, so I think that the enablers of banking as a service per se, in general, for a bank, if I would start from that and then I go for the more general enablers, are essentially, we talked about APIs, but when we talk about servicing many brands, many fintechs at a scale, the banking operations really needs to be extremely scalable and very resilient. So it's not only outsourcing their APIs per se or opening their APIs, they are actually opening their operations as a service to the public. And that means the compliance operations, the payment desk operations, the risk management operations, the whole ALM management, everything that is core to the bank needs to be externalized along with the APIs. And that's a completely different model of operation that the bank needs now to operate in in order to scale to service around 100, 200, or 1,000 partner in an e-commerce world, and if we expect that. So that's a big transformation, and there's a lot of technology pieces that needs to come together, from developer enablement to the ability to onboard these partners easily, to ability to service them and build them, and all do that in a very seamless manner so that it can scale and banking as a service can eventually have its own returns. And this is really important and critical, because yes, there is all the beautiful customer experiences that and the value propositions that we talk about, but the internal operation of the bank and how to restructure that to operate at that scale, I think is often a missing piece in the conversation. And this is where you can make it or break it as being as a bank who's really good at banking as a service. And I can talk more about more technology enablers, the data analytics, the billing management, the onboarding, the ability to automate a lot of stuff, the ability to easily change a certain configuration value for different partners here and there, to be very dynamic. That's what banking as a service really means from a bank's perspective, but it enables a lot of value from the client side, and that's why the conversation more usually is towards that area.
One of the things, just to add to that, Hassan, I think it's actually that cultural change. Like it's just not the technology, it's actually the cultural change that people, particularly for well-established banks, to think differently, and how they have to think about a different approach, a customer first approach, when traditionally, as Osman said before, rather than being about a product, really thinking about the customer, and it's that cultural change, and then that flows through to the technology and all the other aspects and thinking differently. And that's something that we've seen has been one of the biggest challenges globally when organizations want to go on this digital banking journey, but they sort of fall back into the bad behaviors of probably some of the legacy technology and some of the things that have gone on in the past. And that's where they said they really struggle to make it work. But those that have sort of really broken the mold, culturally changed, thought differently are, some of the really good success stories that you see with digital banking and banking as a service operators around the globe.
Just a reflection, because been in the typical incumbent bank for 27 years. Service has always taught in those days as the key factor that you are part of a service industry. The fact of the matter is that we have to relaunch and call it banking as a service, as if it never existed in its true spirit. So it went to an extreme that it had to relaunch to resurface and create its own meaning. What's the difference between a hospitality, hotel, insurance, restaurant, fine dine? That's also service as good as banking. And I guess with this culture, that the banks will have to rethink and reposition and find their niche. So universal banking, I think, will have a challenge that you can't be doing everything and have a differentiation. So I guess payment or credit card or a mortgage or a personal loan, all will have their own niche, and you need to have a differentiator for that in order for you to survive. Because there is a price war, there is a disruptor, which is a healthy competition, which will be passed back to the end client. So I think it's a good competition to have. And it is about time that we all wake up and see that, you are only as good as your customer.
Exactly. I can't agree more.
Agree 100%.
I think Osman kind of have already answered to my last question to all of you. I think if there's one sentence you have to say to the challenger banks or digital banks, what is that, and how do you think that they should be, excel in this space in terms of banking as a service?
Who's going to go? I'll go first. For me, it's think differently. It come in with a different mindset. All the pieces of the puzzle are there for you. It's how you put them together and how you create and be the bank or be the digital bank that you want to be. And I couldn't agree more with what Osman said about niche. You know, the real success stories again globally with digital banks are those that really focused on a particular niche part of the market, and they went and they became the masters of that niche, and those are the ones that be very successful. But for me, it's think differently and be prepared to challenge the norm.
Yeah, I restate that. Find your niche is one, more or less. That's I think a top one. If you are not doing banking as a service yourself, if you are not being licensed yourself, then yeah, banking as a service to go to market fastest too. But if you are having your own license, then don't forget you're a bank, so risk and compliance is a must, along with customer experience. So for me, these are the three things, and yeah, these are the top three things to keep in mind.
Okay, I think I will stick to basics in my view that customer is king. So you are in an industry where you have a consistently look for the unmet need of the client. As long as you are looking at that, whether you are digitally doing it or doing it with a human touch, it really doesn't matter, because each market is very different in terms of their client behavior or client experience. So as long as you have a line of sight to the client and you're close to the client, you will be making those right choices, whether it is through digitally or otherwise. So client is king.
Wonderful. I think this is a very great panel discussions. I have learned a lot, and also I think this sharing kind of also give us the taglines in terms of banking as a service. Stay client focused and also be creative, and also stay compliant and make sure that we also align to the regulatory expectations. Thank you very much to everyone, Osman, Myles, and Hassan, for joining us on this panel, and I'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paula.
Thank you. Thanks, Al.